I mean, what do you think is important if I'm trying to evolve from the in-person speaking to the virtual YouTube style speaking? What's something that you think is important in making that shift?
Sure. Well, I think you need to get good at it. And by the way, if you ever want to get on stage, if you're thinking about, I want to be a speaker, I want to do a TED Talk, I would never suggest making that your very first presentation. Go out there, practice, get in front of any audience you can. I would call colleges up in the local market here and say, and talk to their professors and say, hey, they know who I am. And even if they don't know who I am, introduce yourself, tell them what you do, and say, I'm working on a presentation. I'd love to come in and talk about this topic because I think it would be relevant to your students, and in exchange for that, I want them to give me feedback. And now you get practice and feedback.
Today we're joined by customer experience expert, been in the game a minute, crushing it, and the new book, I'll Be Back, is out now. Shep Hyken, welcome back, the After Hours Entrepreneur.
Hey, it is great to be back. Yep, there's the book with the Terminator font and the Terminator glasses, but hey, I admit it, I'm no Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, but you, in the customer experience industry, I will still give you the Arnold stamp of approval, at least for now.
Well, thank you.
But
thank you.
You know, Shep, again, this is the second time we've chatted. A lot's changed since our first visit on the After Hours Entrepreneur in how customer experience expectations have changed. Let me ask you this straight up. In going into Q4 of 2021, what's the best thing as a business owner that I can do to give people a good online customer experience?
A good online customer experience. Okay. Well, I want you to go through the process yourself. I want you to go through every different type of interaction that customer is going to have with your website and make sure that it is intuitive and that it is as frictionless as possible. When you get to, for example, the checkout form where they have to put in their name, their number, their address, et cetera, make it as easy as possible. There's studies that prove that every field of information that you don't need, take it out of the form because it increases the likelihood that the customer will finish their interaction or their transaction with you. So just make it as easy and frictionless as possible.
Yeah, I love that. And going through and testing systems is something that I try to do, or at least have ways to get feedback from, customers and fans and audience members as they go through. And one of the chapters here in the book is reduce friction, Shep. And I think that making things easy is something that is super important. Right? What impact do you think making things frictionless has on that customer experience?
All right, so let's even go back before the pandemic. And by the way, I wrote an entire book titled The Convenience Revolution, all about reducing friction. And I felt that, and I started this book before the pandemic. I started writing the book before the pandemic began. But as I got into it, I recognized that the idea of reducing friction becomes even more important. It was a differentiator before. Convenience was what separated you from your competition. Everybody has great service. Everybody has a great product. Now what do? You separate yourself by making yourself easier to do business with. Well, guess what happened? Companies were forced to do business in an easier manner. And I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was doing business with an automobile dealership here in St. Louis, Missouri, where I live. Been buying cars from them for over 20 years. And then one day, I happened to be at another dealership, saw the car in the window. I said, I've got to go check that car out. So I went in, excuse me, and I told the guy, I'm not going to buy. You guys are 10 miles from where I live, and there's a dealership that's just down the street. And the man looks at me, he says, look around. Do you see a waiting room anywhere? We don't have a waiting room. We actually have a small one, but nobody ever uses it because when you need service for your car, we bring you a loaner, a brand new car, almost like yours. We'll pick yours up and we'll bring your car back when it's done. You don't ever have to come in the dealership again. And I thought, wow, that's convenient. Well, guess what? After 20 plus years of doing business with this other dealership, I switched because of convenience. Mm-hmm. Well, then the pandemic hits, and all of a sudden, all these automotive dealerships are saying, you don't need to come to us. Go online, choose the type of car you want, call us, we'll bring you one out to try. We'll bring you one out to sell. You need service, we'll bring you a loaner, just like I was used to. And I thought to myself, wow, what was a differentiator all of a sudden is a trend, if not even an expectation like it is today. So I believe today, It's not just a differentiator, it's an expectation. Our customers are smarter than ever. They're doing business with companies that completely get it, and therefore those companies are setting the bar higher for every other brand and company that's out there. So we've got to remember, be easy to do business with.
Certainly being, and one of the problems that I think ran into early in my journey was, I think, giving too many links or too much information. And I do really appreciate what you said, Shep, about removing words that are just unnecessary, right? It's so easy to do that when you're writing. And I talk to my team, I talk to people about this all the time. After you write something out, after you write out your website, remove half the words, right? And then do that again.
It's amazing what you don't need.
Right. Who has time to go to, especially on a mobile phone, you're like scanning through all these tiny words, and you're actually not, getting anywhere meaningful. So that's super important. The other, and I think that's really relevant too in setting an expectation of what the relationship's going to be like long term. I do feel like let me ask you this, Shep. Do you think that the average consumer's attention span is lower now than it was 5 years ago?
I don't know about attention span. That's really a behavioral question, but I do know their tolerance and their patience is lower. And if that's what you're referring to, they won't put up with something anymore. If they don't get it fast, if it becomes cumbersome. If I'm, say for example, and by the way, we have stats. We interviewed over 1,000 consumers to find out things like, where do you go first? Do you go to a website to get information, or do you pick up the phone and make a call? And I can't remember, it's 40 some odd percent. The first thing they do is go digital first.
Right.
And that means they're going to your website, they're going to your YouTube channel, they're going to your Facebook page, they're going to wherever you are represented to look for answers to their questions. Make it easy for them. And by the way, if they can't find it, make it very easy for them to seamlessly get to a human that they can talk to, and make that an easy journey as well. Don't put somebody on hold for 2 hours. Granted, if you have to put them on hold, and I get it, sometimes that's going to happen. It's very inexpensive to put the technology in there that, hey, we're sorry, we're not available. Somebody's going to call you back in 1 hour and 30 minutes. Please dial, punch in your phone number and we'll get back to you. At least I don't have to sit on hold and listen to terrible music or, just the same advertising and marketing messages over and over again.
And you have to do what you say too, right? Because you certainly never want to overpromise and underdeliver. I try to do the opposite of that. But I think what I mean, Shep, when I say, the average attention span is, we've got this battle of the 15-second or less videos going on right now. TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, very active on YouTube yourself, Shep, by the way, which I definitely want to talk about. But we've got this battle for 15-second or less videos. And one of the reasons that I fell in love with video and audio is it allows me to actually give quick wins to people, give a quick piece of advice that can maybe impact them in a special way. I think it's one of the reasons why Twitter has been really successful is, you minimize the characters. Anyway, I think where I'm going with this is, do you feel like setting up a customer expectation with these short video clips can impact their expectation on the back end when they actually start chatting with you? I think, like you said, there's this expectation that you're going to get a response back if you DM someone on social media within X amount of time. Right.
Boy, there's a lot of questions.
I know. I'd hate to do it too. You got my mind racing.
No.
Here.
Let's start with Twitter, because Twitter's a great example where I can't remember what was it originally, 140 characters,
right,
and then they bumped it to 280 characters. I like that they gave me those extra. I think it's 280 characters. I like that they gave me the extra characters because it allows me not to be so concise and so focused on eliminating words and using abbreviations. That's very nice, but still 280 characters,
right,
is not a lot, which still requires you to be very precise and direct. I like that. Now, you cross over to video. Now, I don't know about a 15-second video. That's really, really hard to say much in 15 seconds. I always joked, when somebody said, hey, you're going to do a TED-style talk. You've got 15 minutes or 18 minutes or 20 minutes. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't even warm up lasagna in 15 minutes. How am I going to warm up this audience? And you know what? You learn and adapt. The attention span is definitely shorter. When I'm hired to do a speech, sometimes it's for 18 minutes, 15 minutes. Most of the time it's for 40 minutes to an hour, sometimes even an hour and a half, which I then think is very long. But hey, I just have to rely upon my charming good looks and sense of humor to get us through it. All right, I digress.
And awesome sunglasses too, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks. Here, we'll put those back on. Yeah, this is called entertainment.
I'll be back.
So,
I dig it. I like the branding.
I'll be back.
And on it, and I don't want to get too far off topic because I like where you're going, Shep. But you have a book trailer on your YouTube channel that's very clever. It's very good. I'm going to give props there.
We terminate some businesses. We blow them up.
Yeah.
It's about a 2-minute long video. And even then, I think that's a little bit long. So what we did, we cut it up into little short pieces. But each scene, I go into a restaurant and I'm like waiting. Nobody's taking care of me. And I worst service ever. Relationship terminated. Big explosion. It's fun. So if you have a chance, if nothing else, check that out. It's a whole lot of fun.
It is well done.
Right,
I'll have a link in the comments below.
Well, thanks. Back to the question, though, about short video. What can you do in 15 seconds? You know, I know that TikTok, you have to be under a minute. There's a lot you can do under a minute. There's little that you can do at 15. But if you can get a point across, here, I'll just read you a stat. Put my glasses on to do this so I don't get it wrong. Here you go. 83% of customers will switch because of bad customer service. If you're providing bad customer service, you've got to know they're not coming back. You want your customers to say, I'll be back. You know, so there, I bet you that was under 15 seconds. That's not easy to do. So,
well, it takes, honestly,
it
just takes practice. You got to start doing it as well, you know, because it's easy to make assumptions about what your audience likes. And, you know, if you don't go, you don't know, so to speak.
But that's what TikTok's great for, is that it's forcing people to give great messages, entertaining footage, or something of what, anyway, the person who's serving it up thinks is relevant. It's forcing them to do it in a concise manner that makes sense to the others. And you know, for those that get it, it works. I know that for TikTok, if I'm going to share a stat like that, I've got to dance while I'm doing it because that gives a better chance of everybody enjoying.
Especially if you know, on TikTok specifically, it's really trend driven, you know, so if you can hop onto a new trend or a new piece of music that's working, that's certainly relevant. I mean, you know, a little bit off topic when it comes to customer experience, but I do want to talk about YouTube for a minute, Shep, because I see you're active there. You put a value.
Very active. Every single week I'm putting content up there,
which to me says that you see value in that marketplace, and I do too. I find that YouTube is one of the best places to answer questions, and anytime I think you can give a customer a quick answer, that's a win. Right? They don't have to go through the automated systems. They can just go to YouTube and get a frequently asked question. So anyway, I want to hear from you, Shep. Why do you put so much effort and emphasis on YouTube?
Sure. And there's two things I'd like to share here. Number one, to the customer service and experience side. One day I decided I wanted to do work with a company. I'm not going to tell you the name of the company, but their initials are Salesforce. So
familiar.
I loved the Salesforce CRM. They've been a client for years, and I use their software. And I remember when I was thinking about using them, I said, tell me about your customer support. What do I need to do to get quick answers? Am I going to have to call? Is it a ticketed system where I'll hear back from somebody in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? And the guy says, go online, Google, how do I do blank, whatever it was we were talking about in Salesforce. And YouTube videos came up. The YouTube videos were not only produced by Salesforce, they were also produced by customers sharing how they're doing it. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. Now, as an entrepreneur, and I am one of these, I recognize that this type of video does two things. It serves up two really important messages. One is, here's how you get your answer. Two is, here's the best way to use your product. I'll actually throw a third one in and check out the customers that are sharing this too. Obviously, we have very happy customers that are evangelizing our product by coming in and supporting it as well. So I think there's lots of value to putting, online tutorials, especially in YouTube. Now, back to my channel, we have over 600 videos. Every single week, I write an article. Actually write several articles, but the particular article that I usually write for my newsletter and blog, and this is all free content. If you go to my website, you can get the articles at no charge. If you go on YouTube, they're all there. I believe it's customer service tips or weekly tips or something like that. They're all about 3 or 4 minutes long, and they are the perfect videos to show at a meeting. You could have, a half a dozen people sitting in your room. You could, I know some of my clients, if they become clients, have shown these videos at meetings where there's hundreds of people. But what I do is I put that content online. I believe the more you give, the more you get. It's the law of reciprocity. If you hold back too much, people become skeptical. If I share what's in my brain and they like what's in my brain, knowing what I do for a living, which is I go out and deliver keynote speeches and do research and share this information at meetings. We have trainers that deliver my content. They'll know that, hey, this is what Shep does. This is everything. So for any entrepreneur that's out there, for any business that's out there, retail or consumer-based or B2B, the more you put online that's going to be helpful to your customers, the more likely they are to want to do business with you.
I'm 100% on board. I'm posting YouTube content multiple times a week on multiple channels. So I'm definitely big there. And I just love the ability to leverage the second largest search engine on the internet to answer questions. And the more you start...
Which is owned by the first largest search engine.
Google, Alphabet company. Absolutely. So yeah, and it's super searchable, great way to be found, great way to answer. And I think give a great customer experience. And even if you're like Mark, Shep, I'm nervous. I'm not comfortable on camera. I've never been on YouTube. We all start somewhere. It's okay.
Yeah. Hey, and I've got an idea for that. If there's somebody in your, depending upon the kind of business you're in, if there's somebody that can just even take their iPhone and follow you around for a half a day, a few hours, or do this 2 or 3 times and just do it an hour or two, you'll start to get comfortable looking into the camera, making comments. Mm-hmm. And, you can have your kid do this because what you want to do is just get comfortable with that camera being around. So what I do, and I'll be very transparent about my process. A lot of people, they'll shoot the video first because they're really good at just off the cuff saying whatever they needs to be said, which I'm good at doing as well. But what I found is that when I transcribed that to try to create an article, it was just a tiny little skeleton of an article. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go the other way around. I'm going to write an article first, but I'm going to write it the way I would talk it. So, which, by the way, does not read all that well, which is why I've got a colleague here in my office, and her job is to make sure she changes it and grammatically corrects it so that it does read well. But it allows me to take that initial article that I write. My goal is to shoot for about 400 to 500 words. Mm. And the reason is because 400 words, it looks, and I don't remember what the right terminology is, but it's recognized as an article and not just a short little piece of content, almost tweet-like. And yet it's not too long. And when I go to record this, if I were to read this as a script, it takes about maybe 3 to 4 minutes to do. So what I do is I take that article and I put it onto a teleprompter. And I have this little iPad teleprompter that costs hardly anything, maybe $100 and something, okay? And I have my camera behind it. And you can even use your iPhone or your Android, or I have a regular camera that I use, but it doesn't matter. So I have that, and I'm looking right at the words. And what's cool about the little app that I have, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like, Teleprompt Pro Plus or something, is it's voice activated, which is really cool because I can read this script and it moves by itself, but every once in a while I want to stop and say something and add to it. And if I do that, it's like the script stops. It knows I'm going off script, and then I come back on. And it's almost, it really is seamless. And then I take that footage and I give it to another colleague we have here at our company, and they do a quick little edit and put some cool graphics to make it visually entertaining, at least more so than just a talking head. And that's how we do it. And we do that every single week. We put videos up there just so that companies and people can learn.
It's a great, and it's very similar to what I preach over here at the After Hours Entrepreneur at Mark Savant Media. It's putting systems in place so that you can make a lot of content for your time. So, by preparing and building out an outline or a word track about what you want to be saying, it helps you to make, the short clips, because finding ways to make short clips off your long form content that is still valuable, I find is really, really, really important. Shep, I want to kind of shift topics here because you mentioned.
Well, hold on one second.
Okay, please.
Really important thing. I think this is so important. How long does it take to do all of this? It takes me about a half an hour to write the article, and to actually record it takes about maybe, 8 minutes because I've got to go in and get things set up. And
Sure.
I'll usually gang up a bunch in a row. So really, I get through it in one take. So really, it's not that long. The editing takes about an hour. All right. If I were to do it myself, it would take an hour. So I've got a total of about an hour and a half or so invested. If I were to try to pick up the phone and call 15, 20 people, I don't think I could do it in an hour,
No way.
hour and a half. But what happens is my YouTube video goes to, and we have the numbers, it tracks to about anywhere on a great week, I'm going to get 8,000, 10,000 views on my YouTube channel. Now, I know that's not a lot compared to other people, but hey, I'm a customer service experience guy. For that little niche, it's pretty good.
I mean, that's you're looking at 8,000 people that you served, right? That you were able to,
right. Instead of trying to pick up the phone and say, hi, this is what I do.
right,
Interested? You know?
right.
And the people who are interested, they're going to find me. They're going to get to me. They're going to be looking online. I need customer service training. I need to get a customer experience expert. Whatever. I'm making myself available on a mode or a medium, if you will, that allows me to hit thousands and thousands instead of dozens.
Yeah, it's. I think we almost take it for granted how powerful that is. And I do want to hear from you, Shep, because you've done a good job of evolving from the in-person large-scale live events like these TED events, but now we're kind of having what we perceive as smaller scale, a YouTube video. But I had a YouTube video that reached almost over 500,000 people. That's a pretty large.
Isn't that cool?
That's a pretty large public speaking
Yeah.
event right there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, what do you think is important if I'm trying to evolve from the in-person speaking to the virtual YouTube style speaking? What's something that you think is important in making that shift?
Sure. Well, I think you need to get good at it because
Yeah.
if you want to, we're talking about this is what I get paid to do is paid to speak. If I am not good on camera for these virtual events, I'm not going to make any money when clients are saying we're not going to have a live event. We want to do a virtual. So what I did in the pandemic is I upped my game. I had a nice camera. It wasn't very expensive, maybe a couple of $100. I told you about my iPad teleprompter. And so when we went into the pandemic, I said, you know what? I think in the next few months, I better be able to up the virtual game. So I called B&H Photo and I talked to one of the reps there, and they sold me all kinds of cool stuff.
Nice.
New cameras, better, and honestly, it made a big difference. You can see the difference. I don't think it's totally necessary for the average person to do this, but there's a big difference. It appears to be a big difference when you're starting to say, hey, I want to get paid, and I want to get paid a lot. So what I did is I got all that in, and I practiced with it for a week. I called my clients, and I said, I'm going to do something I've never done before. A lot of people are freaking out right now. They're in quarantine. They're not allowed to come to the office. They're not allowed to go out and travel anymore. Yeah. Why don't we give them a gift? I'm happy to do a speech online for you, and then we'll follow it up with Q&A. It'll be about 30 minutes long, no charge, and I booked maybe 4 or 5 a day. I was doing as many as I could to get as good as I can. And by the way, if you ever want to get on stage, if you're thinking about, I want to be a speaker, I want to do a TED Talk, I would never suggest making that your very first presentation. Go out there, practice, get in front of any audience you can. I would call colleges up in the local market here and say, and talk to their professors and say, hey, they know who I am. And even if they don't know who I am, introduce yourself, tell them what you do, and say, I'm working on a presentation. I'd love to come in and talk about this topic because I think it would be relevant to your students. And in exchange for that, I want them to give me feedback. And now you get practice and feedback. You call up companies and you say, I don't know if you ever have a meeting, but if you do, even if it's a little meeting with 12 people in a boardroom on your Monday morning meeting, I'd love to come in and make a presentation. No charge. All I want is your feedback. I need to get good. You would be amazed at how many people will take you up on that.
Agree. I've reached out to local schools, like you said. I've spoken to schools, university, local real estate office, anywhere you think you could provide value. You should be reaching out and getting in front of people, because you're right. Your first time is probably not going to be great, but with you just make each event better than the last. Do you like to stand up when you're doing these online virtual events? Do you like to stand up?
So right now, everybody thinks, oh, you're at home right now. I'm really not at home. I'm actually in my office. Look at that messy desk. And I like the homey feel that it gives me. but on the other side of this wall is a studio. And, here's the cool thing. You can, so here's some tips. If you have a wall that you're willing to ruin, paint it green, like a green screen, okay? You don't need to go out and spend a lot of money for a really good, and I have one of these. When COVID hit, I said, if I get COVID and I can't come into the office, so I now have my portable green screen that, you pull it up and,
Sure.
and I have the cameras we can move behind me. But you can buy green screen paint for about $150 for a small jar, or Google the green screen paint formula and then go to your local hardware store and get a small can of paint for about $15. Okay. Paint the wall, and now buy an inexpensive editing program. You can get them as inexpensive as, some of them are probably free. I mean, what comes on a Mac is probably more than capable, but you need to be able to take that green screen, put backgrounds on it, and learn how to use it. Spend a weekend and just immerse yourself in this. And when you come out, you're going to be able to you're going to stand in front of the camera, do a really boring presentation, and then augment it with some visual graphics, maybe even video overlay, which, again, it's not hard to do. You just have to learn how to do it. And all of a sudden, what seems like an average talking head turns into something that's a little bit nicer that people want to listen to and watch.
You have to be able to capture someone's attention on video. It is a requirement for success moving forward. Period. If you don't fit, and I know what people are going to say, Shep. I know what they're going to say. They say, Shep, I don't have time. I don't have time to learn all this stuff. I'm busy. I got kids. My daughter just had her first day of kindergarten today, right? But the reality is, if you want to exist in the next 5 years, you have to learn how to do what we're doing right now. You have to learn how to stand out on camera. And maybe that means you need better lighting or better video or better audio. Whatever that means, you can figure that out.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
Please understand, you're not trying to create perfection. And by the way, in video today, YouTube, Vimeo, whatever it is, the video that's just okay is acceptable. The audio, however, has to be really good because people need to hear it. And most people today, if they're going to watch your content, they're watching it on a phone. And that means the video doesn't have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. It's just got to be good enough, and then the audio has to be great. And then, of course, there's captions underneath so people can read what they're watching if they're in a busy place and don't want to turn up their volume. So keep all those things in mind. I think it's a great way to market yourself, which is one of the, getting back to the book, I'll Be Back, how to get customers to come back again and again. Part of my promotion has been to drop little video nuggets along the way. Mm-hmm. And it's been a lot of fun to do that. We talked about the trailer, but I also put content from the book online. So that just helps sell the book. It gives people a sneak peek of what's inside.
Yep. Well, the book is I'll Be Back. The man is Shep Hyken. You can go to hyken.com to find out more about the book. I'll have some links below with some other places that you can find out what Shep's doing because he's very active. And I love the way, I'm just really impressed with the way you're leveraging YouTube. It's really, really great, Shep. A lot of people, it's way under the radar. So keep up the great work. Ladies, gentlemen, you got to check out Shep on YouTube too. Links below. Okay. Shep, before I let you go, we got to get into the overrated, underrated section of the program. Are you ready? You linked up,
Sure.
Ready to go? Cool. Shep, overrated, underrated television.
Underrated.
Underrated. Why do you say underrated, Shep? I got to know.
Well, so I think people think still today there's a huge number of people, and we're starting to see a major shift that's happened in the last year so underrated, I guess overrated or underrated for what terms? People think, I guess there's a certain age, and I'm going to say it's 40 or above, that still think of TV as major network. Okay, and they haven't taken advantage of all the streaming channels. And eventually your television isn't about having an antenna or a cable connection to one provider. It's buying subscription service to the content that you want and you like. And I believe there's a great opportunity there if people would exploit it.
Okay. Dig it. Overrated, underrated billboards.
Billboards. Wow. Right now I would say they're overrated.
Okay. Overrated.
Who's driving to work these days?
Not everyone. But I'll tell you what, there were enough people at kindergarten car line that I'll tell you, there's still people on the road. I'll tell you what, holy moly. Holy cow. Okay. Overrated, underrated TikTok.
TikTok, overrated.
Overrated, underrated social audio. Clubhouse, Facebook audio. Overrated, underrated.
Underrated.
Underrated. Is that on your radar? Do you have any plans to go there?
I've been there, and I think that if the median hits, it's going to be huge. It's a great forum for people to create, community, if you will, and be able to deliver. It's there. I think all of these social streaming channels, whether it be live streaming on YouTube and LinkedIn, et cetera, or going on Clubhouse and having an opportunity to get a forum. I think that it's like we're in the Betamax VHS wars from the 1980s. If somebody remembers that, it was video, and there were two types or two formats. One was half-inch, one was three-quarter, something like that. One of them was going to win. Well, I don't know which one's going to win, but I think it's important that all of these companies are out there trying to create this format or forum, if you will, where people can communicate, and one of these are going to win.
100% on board. And it's interesting, Shep, just a moment ago when we're talking about recording and purposing, you mentioned that get your audio right. Focus on your audio. And it's interesting. We have some, and honestly, a lot of the YouTube videos that I quote unquote watch, I'm listening, so focus on the audio. I'm not even watching. I'm just listening in the background.
Hey, how about turn that if we're gonna put a 4 or 5 minute video out there, and it's an instructional, educational, tutorial, whatever, it should be strong enough to stand on its own that you can make a podcast of an audio podcast out of it.
100%. And now you're reaching and serving people on multiple platforms, creating less friction, which is where we started the episode. Go to where people are at. Don't make them go to a bunch of places.
You're so good at this. It just kind of goes full circle. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Shep, before I let you go, 10 seconds. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
Wait, if I had 10 seconds with myself 10 years ago, what would I say? Have an attitude of gratitude. There is good in everything that happens, even the worst days. They just last 24 hours, and something good happens even on those bad days. I think that was 14 seconds.
Love that. I will definitely take it. Shep, it's a pleasure having you back for a second time, and I hope that there'll be a third time. So let's just say I'll be back.
Wait. So, yeah, I'll be back. Let's count on it. Thanks for having me here.
You too, Shep. Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.